of you here today, but it's wonderful to see you. And this session will be recorded. Just started recording now for anyone who wants to catch up with it later or who isn't actually able to attend this afternoon. So you're very, very welcome. And the purpose of this academic advisor session is really to help you get the most out of your studies and to give you the opportunity at this stage on your first module, or maybe you may be actually on your second or third module and just want to sort of get some pointers and get refreshed in terms of some of the advice we might be able to give you and the supports. So which or whether, we're delighted to have you join us here, either now in real time or subsequently. So I'll just let you know what we're going to be doing this evening. I'm going to be talking to you really about what we advise in terms of making the most out of each module and ensuring your success in learning. I'm going to be giving you tips for all sorts of different learning activities as you're going through your module, guidance on the assignment, also some pointers on academic integrity and referencing, because that's an area where if you haven't studied for a while, it can be a little bit difficult to run familiar, and it's important to get to grips with it early in your studies. We'll also be talking about all the different supports and resources that are available to you, and what you can avail of in terms of the library, contact information for the various levels of support that are provided to you as a student of ISEP and the University of East London. And we'll be inviting you, if you're interested, to have your say as a student rep, to contribute to the surveys and feedback questionnaires that we, put out there, so that you can give us feedback and tell us how we can enhance and improve the offering. And also then at the end, we'll be able to take any questions that you might have. We're only a small group. So as I say, if you want to stop me at any stage, put your hand up or just, type into the chat box, and Chloe will help me, and we'll be happy to take any questions as we go as well. So we won't stand on ceremony with such a nice small group. And you're very welcome, Laureen and Winnie and Breda. Lovely to have you here with me this evening and with Chloe. Okay. So just interested from the small group we have here this afternoon, are you all on your first module, or have you been studying for a while?
This is actually my first module.
Okay, your first one. And you, Winnie?
Winnie just popped into the chat as well, yeah, that this is her first module also.
And Breda, is it your first one too?
No, it's my second one. I did understanding behavior first.
Good. And did you enjoy that, Breda?
It wasn't, it was enjoyable, but I would have to say it was, I suppose, it was a while since I had gone back into studies. So it was a case of just sort of jumping on the bandwagon again and getting back in. So I'm really looking forward to this one now again. I just felt, I suppose, it's a while since it was a while since I was studying, but I saw this and I just said, I go for it. So, yeah. So
yeah, it's a good plan. And that's the other thing. Myself and the other tutors, all of the team, we're actually here for you, so that, if you have questions, or if you're feeling a bit wobbly, or if you need support at any point, that's what we're here for, really, to ensure your success in learning. So it is a bit of a challenge when I even find myself, if I haven't written in a while and I sit down and I've got to do something, it's like a muscle. It needs that exercising, and if you haven't used it in a while, you have to warm up and get practice again. Yes. But, it'll be fine. So really, in terms of getting the most out of your module, we are talking here about setting the scene for success, putting everything in place so that you can actually, ensure that you make it as easy as possible for yourself. First of all, if you are on your first module, make sure that you fully explore the home page and everything that's there when you go in. So don't be afraid. You can't break anything, click away, listen to all those small introductory videos, explore, every aspect of it, get familiar with it. If you prefer to have a hard copy of your module guide or any of the various handbooks, then do that. Either save them to your desktop or print them off. Put the schedule for your particular module and the key dates, save those, put them somewhere prominent in your study space. And we would recommend that you always kind of, have a regular schedule, that you have a kind of a pattern. The more patterned your behavior is around studying, the more routines that you can actually establish for yourself, the easier it is just to keep going. And one thing I would say, like if you commit to doing X number of hours a week or X number of sessions, whatever suits your particular circumstances, if you miss one of those sessions, it's not a drama. Just try and get caught up. So sometimes if you regularly do it on a Saturday morning and you can't do it on a Saturday morning, try and substitute that Saturday with another session. If you're going to if you feel you're dropping behind and you need some extra support, contact your tutor in advance of actually getting into trouble or getting behind. Just sort of say, I'm going to be struggling a bit at the moment, or I've been sick the last couple of weeks. So let them know, because that way they can feed you that little bit of extra support as you need it. So don't be alone. Take the help that's there. So as I said, log into Moodle, get yourself familiar with each and every aspect of that home page. Explore all of the modules maybe from the beginning, because one of the lovely things, we operate here on the basis that you're all adult learners. We're not going to dictate your exact pace. You will find the pace yourself. Having said that, we do recommend that you kind of stick to the general guidelines that are provided by your tutor. So 2 to 3 weeks is the amount of time it should take you to work through each unit of content on a module. So as I said, all early enough, you should be logging into the library as well and exploring all of those resources. Though you will find that there are plenty of resources there on your home page and in the sort of custom, module content that is there for you. But, you will do better in your assignments if you supplement the content and the instruction from your tutor and your work online with extra readings as directed by your tutor. And, when you're coming to your assignment, that's particularly important as well. Contribute to discussions and learning. That's really important. We expect you really to engage with your classmates, to discuss online, to respond to your your other people in the class, because the more you put in there, the more you will get out. That's really quite important. I mentioned already kind of planning your study, planning your assignment, having a schedule, knowing critical dates and deadlines. So this is all about setting the scene, getting the basics right in the beginning, having a routine, knowing what is expected of you, and having everything you need to hand, so that you're making it as easy as possible for yourself. So those are kind of the basics. And most of you will have them mastered already, but it's no harm to be reminded. In terms of the discussions and the online discussions and the learning activities, those are there to amplify and deepen your learning, to allow you to discuss with your classmates key ideas and for you to demonstrate your knowledge, to develop skills for your written assignment. They also allow you the learning activities, and there's 2, I think, for each unit. You get an opportunity there to demonstrate your knowledge, to ask questions, to learn how to analyze, critique, and offer solutions. So it's a learning opportunity. It's also an opportunity for formative assessment, as your tutor can give you feedback and advice and different pointers, maybe point you towards resources. And it can be a very dynamic learning space and very collaborative as well. But again, that depends on each of you as a learner. So it's, important that you respond to other people in the class, as well as just posting your own contribution to the learning activities. It's you can see when those discussions get going, how they snowball, and how you can how different issues can come up, the unexpected learning points and insights. So it can be a very, very rich learning opportunity there for the learning activities. And although they're not an assessed piece, they are very, very key and important learning opportunity for you. So the assignment then is the other piece which is pivotal to your achievement and your outcomes on this module. And the assignment is, something which, if you haven't done any academic writing for a long time or haven't done a written assignment, it can be particularly daunting. So the main thing here is, before you begin at all, read the assignment brief up and down and backwards and sideways. Print it off is my advice, but I like to handle the paper. It's not just you. So you'll see at the top of each of the assignments, it sort of gives you a task, to discuss or explore or critique or etc. And it's usually, each assignment is broken into two parts, just so you know. Part one of the assignment is usually more theoretical and about research base and the foundational knowledge. Part two is more about the application, the applied and practical demonstration of your knowledge. So one is more theoretical, part one usually, and part two tends to be more of a practical emphasis. Each one of those assignments, are parts of the assignment, will have a number of learning outcomes attached to it. And that's what you have to demonstrate. So it's not about just doing what it says on the tin. It's not about writing to the title of the assignment. It is about demonstrating that you are meeting all of the learning outcomes for that part of the assignment, for the module. So the module is about achieving and teaching you 5 or 6 specific learning outcomes, about you achieving those. And for each part of the assignment, there'll be 3 or 4 which will be assessed in part 1 and 3 or 4 which will be assessed in part 2. Read and check the learning outcomes. And then as you're going through, check, am I demonstrating here that I've engaged with the literature? Okay. Am I showing that I understand the positive side of neurodiversity? Am I, etc., etc.? So whatever it says in the learning outcome, just carefully make sure that you're evidencing that in your response. So I also advise people to think a little bit like a courtroom lawyer. When you are writing a paper, it's not just about writing down your opinion, writing down your thoughts, commenting or quoting, from different sources you've read. It's a much more evidenced, systematic demonstration of knowledge that we're looking for. We need to know that you have basically made this knowledge your own. So it's not about just learning and giving it back. You have to show us that you are able to interpret, understand, critically analyze, synthesize, reflect. So it's a much higher level of understanding than simply knowledge or awareness. So it's not giving back, it's showing us that you really understand, can make the knowledge your own, integrate it, and reflect it back, communicate the fact that you have met those learning outcomes. It's really important that when you look at the task, that you do it in a kind of a planned way. So it's very interesting. I'm a psychologist, and there's very interesting research on what makes the difference in terms of success and learning. And really what makes you successful is, first of all, understanding the task. So this is the most basic thing of all. So once you understand the task, then you can plan your learning strategy. That's the other thing, that when they've done research, it's not the most skilled person or the one who knows the most. It's the one who's kind of got an effective strategy. So learning strategy is actually quite key. And what you're going to do by planning your assignment, by reading strategically, by tracking and keeping some sort of an account of, where I found good, as you're going through, what I mean is you read strategically, you read judiciously, you plan what you're doing, having read the assignment. So as you're doing your reading, you're kind of maybe using some color coding or some sort of strategy, and you're saying, okay, that'll be good for my introduction. That's something I could use in that section. Do you understand what I'm saying? So sometimes I use these little legal post-its, right? Can you see these little guys, right? But it could be it could be a highlighter, whatever it is you use, you develop your strategy. So you're collecting your knowledge in a systematic way so that you're recruiting different, pieces of evidence put together to make the case in your assignment. And that's what I mean about being a courtroom lawyer. You're collecting evidence, you're collecting knowledge, you're recruiting everything you need to put together a cohesive, convincing line of argument. I suppose that's the other thing to say to you, that in an essay, in these assignments, you have to make and marshal an effective argument. It's not simply telling a linear story. And sometimes people do that. They give us a very descriptive account of the history of inclusion, for example. It's not going to work. Why? Because that's simply descriptive. It's not analytical. You're not synthesizing. You're not integrating, if I'm making sense. So it's a more muscular interrogation of what you're learning, which demonstrates that you really got your teeth into it. And and that you really understand it. So, I am saying there about websites coming with a health warning. Yeah. So in terms of sources, we want you to read beyond the core content. So if you, please don't overuse, you're allowed to reference the module content, which is kind of customized and curated to make your learning easier, really. That's why we've presented it in this way. And also because it allows you to have access to, it takes the place, if you like, of a lot of didactic kind of lectures that you might have in a synchronous course. But please don't overquote, ICEP stroke UEL 2025 Unit X in inclusion. Please don't overuse that. We would prefer that you would use journal articles or the core texts or whatever. And we'd like you to be reading beyond the core content. Journal articles are really good, and they're short and they're condensed. They are, as well as and they're very accessible, and you can get great recent articles which give you cutting edge perspective on a particular field. The other thing to say to you is, one of these tips, I learned this very early on in college because I lived a long way from the university and nothing was online back then, and I had to get bus, and it took me 2 hours to get to college and 2 hours to get back. So every time I got there, all the books were gone. So I had to go to the articles, but it was to my advantage because I discovered that the books, the journal articles were more up to date and more current than a lot of the books. So that's something to remember. And if you want a shortcut to finding out or getting a summary of a particular field of knowledge, a review article is your only man. And a review article will summarize, if you use keywords, a review article will summarize, the latest thinking around pathological demand avoidance, or maybe, a particular theory of reading or whatever. So a review article will summarize all the studies in an area and give you a very condensed sort of and swift entry and very condensed sort of insights into a particular field, and it'll be bang up to date. So that's one of my key tips. The other thing is to remember that a lot of websites aren't necessarily peer reviewed, and the information on them may not be as reliable as in journal articles. When you're writing your assignment, then use a kind of a scaffold or a skeletal kind of structure. There is an essay outline provided for you. And if you use that, you will not go too far wrong, because it's tried and tested, it's well worn. It will allow you, and it's progressive, and we tell you in each section what's expected. And it sort of builds, each section builds on the next. So you don't have to use the suggested structure, but it just makes your life a lot easier if you do. We would say to group your ideas into themes, organize your thinking into themes and paragraphs, progress your thinking logically, build your ideas upon each other, organize your arguments logically, provide signposts and explanations, critically evaluate, and evidence. Remember that courtroom lawyer that you are now doing this. That's what you have to be thinking. Evidence everything. No, I think or I feel. It doesn't count here. Okay? You can say, in my experience, children with learning difficulties may lack confidence in their etc. And this is in alignment with findings from research. For example, X, Y, and Z 2003. Do you get me? If you're going to give your opinion, it's a lot stronger if you can link it to a piece of research which also backs it up. So that shows us that you're integrating your own professional experience with your knowledge and learning from the literature. It's really important that you support all of your conclusions. So if you think something, or if you may be making an argument, remember at each stage when you're introducing new ideas, but at each stage when you're making a statement, we don't want to see unsupported statements. So you have to, even if it's a fairly obvious statement, like 20% of all learners in schools today have some form of special or additional learning need. But that's a widely accepted statistic, but I still want you to reference it. So it's no matter how obvious it sounds, you're going to have to provide evidence. Probably not for the earth is round or the sun shines, on a regular basis if you live in Malta. But apart from that, evidence. It's very important that you reference in Harvard style. And there's very clear guidance, and some of you may be adept enough to be able to use the referencing systems, that are integrated into Word or your word processing facilities. So, but there's very clear guidance given online on the home page, in the module handbooks, and also through the UEL website and Cite and Write. There's numerous supports there for helping you to reference correctly. And it's just so important because it's seen as a form of, academic integrity to reference properly. It's not a minor issue not to reference properly. It's very intimidating if you haven't done it in a while, but it's a bit like a grammar. So you kind of have to learn, okay, in a reference, it's always going to be the name of the author first, then the date, then the name of the article, then the name. So once you kind of have to sit down and analyze it and learn it. And if you get it in your head, then all you have to, the sequence of these things, then all you have to worry about, because it sometimes shifts depending upon, the type of referencing system, then all you have to do is worry about where the dots go or what's in italics or what isn't or whatever. And you can look that up. You may be able to keep that all in your head, but there is referencing software that you can use there. And there is, often when you if you collect your references as you go, which I would recommend that you do, you can get them formatted as you go. So if you collect it from an electronic source, it'll ask you if you want to download the citation. It will ask you, do you want to download the citation in a particular format? You just say yes. You save that to a Word doc for yourself, as you go. So it's gotten easier and easier. But it's a nightmare if you don't collect the references as you go and you have to do them at the end. So I can tell you, I've made that mistake. So make your life easy, collect your sources, bookmark them, or save them as you go. Whatever methodology you use, it's easier than playing catch up at the end. So there are lots of resources for making sure that you learn how to reference or can check them. And I mean, the other thing is to use, if you have a friend, if you have somebody in your family, if you have, anybody who can help you with this, if it's a particular area of difficulty, there are lots of supports that we can organize. So just in terms of those supports, there's a very helpful resource provided by the UEL Academic Tutor Service, and that's an academic writing support service, and you can book a half-hour session just by emailing in, and that information again is up in Moodle and in the module guide and program handbook. So these two links there, the Manchester Academic Phrase Book is a key classic publication, which will give you all sorts of sound bites, kind of phrases that are academic phrases, link phrases, etc., that are really helpful when you're writing a paper. And another one there, which I particularly like, from the University of Edinburgh, which again is all about academic writing, critical analysis and what it means and how to build your arguments, etc. When you're doing your assignment, remember that you will need to draft and redraft. Also, you'll be aware that your tutors already, have probably said to you that they will take drafts, but they don't take drafts up until the last minute. And the other thing is, you don't necessarily have to give them a full draft. It's very useful sometimes to even get feedback on a page or two, because that good sample of your writing will give you good feedback that you can generalize to the whole essay, because if you're on the right track for a couple of pages, you won't be going too far wrong. You'll be in the swing of it. So sometimes people think they have to be giving a whole essay, but even if you give like partial piece of work and get feedback on the main sort of things, or if you've had issues on a previous paper, you may want to sort of say to your tutor in this term, well, look, am I doing okay? My previous feedback said I needed to do X, Y, and Z. Do you think I'm hitting those things here in this sample? So just that facility is there, but just, be aware of the tutor's availability for that and the dates and submissions windows for getting feedback on drafts. Okay, that's an additional resource for academic tutoring. There are study skills and interactive workshops that are there. You can, there's access to drop-in sessions, one-on-one appointments with academic tutors. There's free interactive workshops. There's a lot of published resources too there on the UEL academic writing skills pages. So well worth exploring, and you can access those supports. Also, we will be organising a dedicated academic writing skills session over the next few weeks with our colleague and Johannes Miranda, and he always provides this to students on this program, and it's well worth attending. And then if you have key or specific questions or issues you'd like help with, he's very happy to answer those or bring you through them on the day. Academic integrity and referencing. I've made some mention of this already. It's absolutely essential to avoid breaching academic regulations. It's really, really important and taken very seriously. It's seen as poor academic conduct to have incomplete or incorrect citations. Sometimes people have references in the body of their paper, but don't include them at the back in the reference list. That's not seen as okay. It's not just about being rushed, because if I'm assessing your paper, I can't actually check that reference, if it's incomplete. I've no way of verifying it. So over-reliance on sources is also seen as poor academic conduct. It's not seen as good practice. It's called source dependency is what it's called. Too many direct quotes is also seen as not as really not great academic conduct, because what you're doing is you're bulking out the body of your paper with big chunks of work that from somebody else, even if it's so. Rather than quoting wholesale, what we prefer to see is that you can put it into your own words. So rephrase, paraphrase, put it into your own words, and then we know that you have integrated it with your own knowledge and really understand it. So if you're using a quotation, it should be for a really specific strategic purpose. And as a general rule of thumb, I would suggest no more than 5 or 6 direct quotations in any assignment. That would be in part 1 or part 2. And, and not big block paragraphs, It could be an argument for maybe using a few definitions of dyslexia, for example. Some of those are very long. Some you might want to quote directly, but again, you want to think judiciously about it. And if you read some of your textbooks, you'll see good models for when they quote and when they don't, and you can use those as a guide. Plagiarism is defined as unattributed information copied from other sources, missing citations, inadequate paraphrasing, and work submitted elsewhere. Okay, so sometimes when you're doing an essay, you'll cut and paste from different sources, meaning to, write down or attribute the source. And it's sort of like a rough draft, and you say, right, I'll go back and I'll paraphrase that afterwards, and you forget to. And that's lethal, because now you've got a piece of someone else's work in there being presented as your own, although it's completely, unintentional. So those are that's why it's really important as you're going to keep track. It's also important that you understand that you can't self-plagiarize. I thought this was very unfair when I discovered this myself. So what it means, though, is you can't be taking some work that you did for a previous essay and importing that in here. Okay, so you've done another course, you did a whole big lovely essay on inclusion, and you're thinking, oh great, sure, I did that before, now I bring that in. No, you can't. So you can use the same ideas, but you're going to have to rewrite them, rethink them, revive them, refresh them, express them quite differently. So it's important that you know this, because if you know all these things, then you'll be fine. It's when we don't know that we fall into these pitfalls. And we find, generally speaking, the level of plagiarism or breaches of academic regulations on the program. It's tiny. And when it does occur, it's really just because of academic naivety or there's been an inadvertent breach. So, but take care, be careful, know what the rules are, and you won't go too far wrong. Practice referencing and check and cross-check. So those are the different resources. Cite them right. You'll be able to use that website. And then there's also a very good YouTube guide on Harvard referencing, but there's numerous sources. These ones are just examples. In terms of presentation and submission tips, these are these are either at the end of the assignment brief or in your module guides or handbook. For administrative purposes, we ask you to include the page number and student number in the footer at the bottom of every page. That there's a particular recommended font, and you shouldn't put your name on the paper. So sometimes people inadvertently put their names on the paper, and it's supposed to be anonymized. So we ask that you don't do that. We also ask that you stick to the word count. Now, you will lose marks potentially if you go way over or way under the word count. So there's a bit of a leeway, 10% either way. And if you think about it, it's because you are learning how to communicate in a succinct and effective manner. And if everyone else is given 5,000 words for the assignment, but you decide, no, I need 20, well, you're not doing that. So it's a discipline. You're learning by these strictures are not just there to torment you or annoy you. They're there because they're going to teach you really how to write effectively, express these complex ideas effectively. And at the end of it, you know, you'll have produced very fine pieces of work. And indeed, many of our students have gone on to have some of their work published, including in the journal. There's a journal attached to the University of East London and beyond. So, you know, think about this as building a really solid foundation for perhaps other forms of writing or for getting stuff published or for presentations in the future. So you're learning key skills here in terms of the accurately referencing and writing in a streamlined, succinct, and effective manner. Yeah, so carefully spell checking and proofreading, that's important too. So sometimes we're very rushed at the end. We think, right, the most important thing is get it in, and that probably is true. But, you know, you do want to present as well. You do want to actually make sure that it's carefully proofed and edited, and yeah, because you don't want anything to detract for you to lose marks on that sort of point. So if that's something that you struggle with, I'd suggest that you have a critical friend actually go through that with you, because spell check may not pick up everything. Proofreading and spell checking, as I say, often left to the end and where people can fall down unnecessarily. No point losing marks for presentation when it's easily rectified. The other thing to say is always use headers, because they signpost the content for the reader and make your paper a lot easier, assignment very easy to negotiate and to make sense of. They also guide and chunk the content and your flow of ideas for you as you're going through and writing your assignment. Early submission pre the deadline can be a very good idea, because it helps you to catch high similarity scores. So if you haven't paraphrased enough, the higher score in Turnitin will catch that. So that's something we would advise as well. Okay, just in terms of the library, the UEL library has lots of different resources, and there is a YouTube video there advising you on how to get started with the library resources. Also, we have a dedicated librarian, Win Pang. She's absolutely lovely and she's great, and she will support you and advise you if you're looking for specific texts. We endeavour to make sure that everything on our reading list is available as an ebook or an electronic journal. But if there is something specific that you're looking for a particular essay or a particular question, if you want to give her, shoot her an email, she'll happily, assist and even meet with you if necessary. So she's very, very facilitative and a great support to you in terms of your studies. In terms of the other forms of support, well, there's a whole raft of supports available to you to ensure your success as a student on the program. Apart from the library support, there's the UEL Student Hub, there's the IT service desk, there's IT support from ISAP Europe. That's more to do with the internal Moodle and access to your homepage supports and learning supports there. I'm here together with Chloe as I'm the academic advisor, and we're here as part of the academic advisory team to help you on a range of issues, maybe maybe advising you on further studies, maybe advising you on the choice of your next module, questions you might have about progression or about assignments or whatever. For module specific queries, the first port of call is always your module tutor. And for assignment specific queries, the same, because they will know that assignment best and what is required, etc. And you can contact them directly, as you know already, via Moodle and email. You will be also, if you progress to do the masters, you'll have an individual supervisor who will be there to provide you with guidance and support and feedback as you move through your writing your thesis and doing your research on that final leg of the journey. So those are all, and we have admin support, of course, and Chloe is here too as our student support officer. So you have a whole range of supports here for ensuring that you can get your work done and with as much ease and success as possible. In terms of student representation, we look to elect student reps and class reps every year to give us feedback on the program so that we can enhance and develop it and make sure that we're responsive to anything that you highlight or that might need improvement. And so this really is about facilitating that, allowing you to have your say. So as I said, we can take action on any issues that are brought to our attention. So how do we do that? We ask you to give us feedback through taking part in midpoint evaluation surveys, telling us your experiences and letting us know, what's working and what might need to be improved on. And then the other way in which we encourage you to have your say is to see if you'd like to be a student rep. And so please let us know. We will send round emails looking to recruit, but if you are interested and would like to put your hand up and feel that you would like that role, it would be fantastic. And we'd be very, very interested and delighted to have you help us with that. And that's the email address to get in touch with if you're interested in being a student rep. So, and now after that whistle stop tour, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. So just, to remind you that your tutor is always there to support you, that they're a great resource in terms of, asking any questions. If you're confused about the demands of a particular assignment, do ask, because you can be very sure that if you're asking that question in an online forum, it's really good because other people will be so grateful to you because you can be sure they also have the same question. So don't be shy, put it out there and you know, your tutor will be delighted to help. Individual tutors will also facilitate you by meeting with you if that's something you need at any stage. And as I've mentioned before, if you are struggling for any reason at all, let your tutor know or let us know, and we will do whatever we can to support you. I don't know if there's any questions there, Chloe, in the chat box.
No, no questions, but Breda just said thank you for a very informative webinar.
Thanks, Breda. I just hope you're all enjoying the program, and that can I ask what modules you're all doing now?
I'm doing the inclusion module.
You're doing inclusion. It's a great module. It's really interesting. At least I found it so. I hope you're finding it so.
Our Mira just wrote in as well to say that she's taking the understanding behavior module.
Yeah, I mean, those modules are bang up to date. The understanding behavior module has a lovely piece of research that we were involved with developing. It's on trauma-informed practice. So, Mira, I hope you enjoy that. It's a very interesting piece of work, just really about how children with special educational needs, and these were young people, they were sort of teenagers by the time we interviewed them, they spoke about how they felt that regular school really didn't meet their needs or help them, and that and so many of them experience a sense of kind of toxic shame in the regular school system. So it was quite sad, really, learning about their experiences. And so important, I think, that we change that dynamic, that no matter what your level of ability, that you feel valued and that you belong in school. So yeah, the behavior as communication is a key one. And you're doing dyslexia, Lorraine. Yeah, Lorraine, that's a really interesting one, because that too is one that I suppose dyslexia is so ubiquitous, and yet educators really do not know or understand. So they'll often think that the slowness of a student to respond is some sort of recalcitrance or something, but actually it's a processing issue. And they don't think of that if it's a verbal response, they only think it's about reading. So because dyslexia affects processing across so many different modalities, that isn't something that's realized or known. So yeah, that too is a terrific module. I hope that, I suppose, we have just designed each one of these modules so that while they cover different specific areas, they're also broad, and they also take different themes and revisit them each time. So we would hope that you would see that the sort of social and emotional side is a running theme, that universal design for learning is a running theme, that parental collaboration is a running theme, but the issues will vary, the techniques will vary, but there's a lot that stays the same. So yeah. Thank you, Winnie, and thank you, everybody, for coming along this evening. This session will be, as you know, it's being recorded, and it will be made available to everybody online. And we'll be following up shortly with a more detailed, specific session from our colleague Johannes Miranda, specifically on academic writing skills. And I would urge you to come along to that, because and keep all those questions you have about how do I do this and how do I do the other, and how exactly will I demonstrate critical analysis, etc. And you will not be left wondering after that session. He always does a great job. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that then. Nothing nothing is left for me but to wish you all the best and every success in this module, and we'll see you again the next academic advisory session. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.